Hi everyone, this is Rachel with the Untitled Chapter Public Library, and I'm here today to teach you all how to make crystal soap. So this is a really fun design to do with melt and pour soaps that you can get really creative with. You can get creative on your colors and your scents. You can customize it to different shapes if you get special molds and things like that. Today I'm going to use typical square silicone molds, but we are going to fancy it up in the end so that it looks a little bit like an amethyst geode with like pointy bits spiking up and things like that. So to get started, the supplies you will need: melt and pour soap base. I like to get the clear glycerin kind. I like to get a bunch of it just so I can kind of make my soap in batches. I also have some shea butter soap base, which as you can see is opaque and just plain white, and it adds that milky or solid color to whatever soap you're making. That's the soap base. That's really like the meat and potatoes of what you'll actually be working with. And then everything else is kind of embellishments. So in terms of tools, like I said, I've got my molds back here, these square silicone molds that you can get at any crafting shop. I've got a cutting board and knife here so that I can sculpt my soap when the time comes. I've got spoons for stirring, metal spoons for stirring, and I've got a big glass measuring cup for melting my soap base in so that I can incorporate the color and scents. I've got a little bit of clear melt and pour soap base in there already. And that's just going to get things started so that you don't have to watch too much of me chopping up soap. And then for the coloring, what I use is mica powder, which is basically like colored super ultra fine sand. Mica powder is fairly readily accessible online, but if you can't find what you're looking for, you can also use old eyeshadows or old makeup products. Any powdered makeup product, like especially eyeshadow or blush, would work well for this. So I have this bluish deep purple. I've got this nice amethyst purple. I've got a lilac, and I've got a glittery white. And then for the scents, I'm using essential oils. I have rose, frankincense, bergamot, and ylang ylang. I don't know how you say it. It's a type of flower and it smells really nice. So this is going to be kind of a floral, sophisticated scented soap. We're just going to use a little teeny bit of each, and like I said, you can use whatever scents call out to you. So you can use citrusy scents if you want to use it in the kitchen for washing your hands after cooking and things like that. You can use minty scents if you want something a little bit more invigorating. There are lots and lots of options. So this is what I have for today and what I've got set up. Oh, one more supply I have is a little bit of purple glitter, because glitter is super fun. Now, if you do use mica powder or glitter to pigment your soap, you're just going to want to use it as a hand soap. Don't use it on your face or body. Don't use it on your dishes or anything like this. This is sort of a decorative hand soap. It'll get your hands clean, but you might notice a little bit of glitter or a little bit of that mica powder residue while you're rinsing. So the final tool you will need is this bad boy right behind me, the microwave. It's going to be a big helper to us. And we're going to microwave our soap base in short, quick bursts on high heat. So I'm not gonna mess with any of the microwave settings. I'm gonna leave it pretty much how it usually is to cook. I'm gonna cut off a couple more pieces here of this clear soap base and put it in my trusty measuring cup. And as you'll see, the knife just moves right through it. Always be cautious when you're using something sharp like a kitchen knife. We don't want anyone to get hurt. And I'm putting about a cup worth of this clear soap base in for now. I'm gonna go ahead and start microwaving it for 30 seconds. Now, I've noticed that this particular microwave is a little bit more powerful than most, so I am gonna check on it maybe 1 or 2 times within this 30-second increment, just to be sure it doesn't zap my soap too much. Okay, so it's looking a little melty, but not all the way melted. We do want it to go ahead and melt all the way down into a liquid. I'm gonna give it a stir after this 30-second increment to help things along. And as you can see, the bottom layer is nice and gooey, but we still have some top parts that need to get melted. So I'm stirring it up just a little bit so that heat can distribute more evenly. It makes a nice jelly, gooey, ooey mess. The nice thing about soap making is it is very messy and sticky in some respects, but because you're making soap, it's also nice and clean. I'm popping it in for another 30 seconds. Another note I would like to recommend, I like to clean the microwave before and after doing soap making so that we don't get soapy smells in our food or taco smells in our soap. So this is looking much better. It's liquidy, it's ooey and gooey. I've got a couple little chunks in there, but for the most part, it's melted and incorporated. And because I'm reusing a little bit of soap base that I had already added glitter to, I'm not going to add any glitter or mica powder to this one. It's ready to go, and so I'm just going to go ahead and pour it straight into one of my square molds. It's also handy to have a paper towel on your workstation so that you can minimize the ooey gooiness that goes from your spoon to your surface. So I got about 4 out of the 6 squares filled with that. I'm gonna use my spoon to scrape a little bit more out into that 4th square. Beautiful. And the real fun part of this, because I just have the one measuring cup, is I get to rinse this out and wash it and start over between every single batch. So let me do that. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just popped my second batch of about 1 cup of bits and pieces of this clear soap mix in my measuring cup. And I'm going to show you now how I'm going to mix and match the pigmentation and the scents to create a layered effect, and how that's going to eventually turn into our crystal soaps. So we've got our clear top layer sitting here and chilling. I'm going to give this next batch of clear soap base, a stir, and stick it back in the microwave for about another 30 seconds. Let it get nice and melted. And once this is melted, we're going to start playing around with the colors and scents. Okay, perfect. So this is nice and liquidy. There's actually a few chunks in there. They're kind of hard to see because it is clear. The chunks are clear and then the liquid is also clear. So you have to kind of stir it around to figure out how much microwaving you do need to do. I think I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds and another good stir. Brilliant. Now all of our chunks are out. And before I finish stirring and pouring into my next set of molds, I'm going to go ahead and add our lightest shade of purple, just a little pinch. I'm going to tap my finger on the edge just a little bit to get a little bit of that powder in there. And I'm going to put, for this layer, one of the lighter scents. So I'm going to put bergamot on this layer. I did about 4 drops just because I'm making kind of a big batch of soap. You can certainly adjust if you're making individual soaps. And like I said, I will be layering scents, using multiple scents. So that's another reason why I only used 4 drops of the one particular scent, because if I use a lot of scents, it gets really overwhelming very quickly. Okay, so we have this lovely, lovely shimmery purple, light purple lavender soap. It smells delightful. And I'm going to start pouring that into my square molds as well. It was also perfect because it ended up filling about 4 of my little slots as well. So we're just going to continue doing this, cutting the soap, melting it, adding the color. I'm going to go next to the lilac color, and then after that to the deep purple, and alternating scents, and just putting them each in their separate square molds. And I will check back with you all once those layers are all set. have microwaved, blended with the color and scents, and poured all 3 of my layers of scent and color combinations. So I have these guys, the clear ones are going to go on the top, and then we've got a couple of the light purple ones. We've got these guys, a couple of the light purple ones, a couple of the medium purple ones. And we have a couple of the darker purple ones. And I'm just letting them set right now. So we're gonna let them sit at room temperature for as long as we have patience for, really. As you could notice when I lifted up these first clear ones, in the time that it took me to get those other ones melted, mixed, and poured, these have already started to solidify. They kind of feel like a jello-y texture. We want to let them get a little bit harder than that, to where they feel like actual soap, so that we can cut them well, and so that they dry nice and clear and transparent. But we're going to let them go ahead and dry, set, whatever you want to call it, for a little bit, and then I'll show you all the next steps. Okay, so it's been about half an hour since I left you last. I came to check on my soaps, and they're firm, and so I'm feeling confident about starting to cut them up and get them ready for our next step. So I've got one more tray of silicone square molds, and I'm gonna set that right here. I'm gonna cut up these colorful chunks and arrange them in here, and I'll show you how. So I'm gonna start with the clear ones, partially because they're gonna go on the top, and partially because they have been sitting the longest, so they're the most firm and ready to go. And as you can see, they don't necessarily turn out in perfect squares. Like this guy's got some extra stuff going on up top from where I was spooning out the extra that was sticking in the measuring cup. And that's okay, because like I said, we're going to be doing a little bit of slicing and dicing to get the colors to know each other. I'm also taking off the little scraps of soap that are hanging on to the edges of the mold, and I'm setting those aside for the next batch of soap that we're going to melt. Okay, so I have my 4 clear ones out, and I'm just going to chop them into thirds. Like this. And now I'm going to set 1/3, one piece in each in a separate square here. So I'm going to have a few extra, and some of these that are a little bit skinnier than others, I might just save and do something else with. But since I've got 6 spaces here, I went ahead and just chopped up 2 of my clear squares into thirds and stuck them in like this. Brilliant. So I'm going to set my extra clear stuff aside. You can always remelt this and use it to make another soap, or you can just use these as lovely single scented soaps on their own. So I'm setting those aside. And now I'm gonna cut open my light purple ones. And I love these silicone molds because they just pop right out of here. Super simple, super easy. Gives them a nice shiny finish as well. And chop these up into thirds also. Brilliant. And now we're going to take these and set them right next to our clear guys in here. Just kind of puzzle piecing them in a little bit so that if my cuts were uneven, it's not a big deal because we're going to add a little extra layer of soap to kind of bind everything together. But having the like uneven sides lined up the right way can help keep them together a little bit more. So there we are with that. And now, let's see, now we're going to do our medium purple. Can't tell, I think. Yeah, this is light purple. That's an extra light purple, so I'll set him aside. Here we go. Here's a nice, lovely medium. And I'm actually just going to cut one of these into thirds, so I'll set the other one aside. Because natural crystals have a little bit of natural variation as well, right? So some of our crystals that we make, some of the crystal points that we are imitating are going to be a little bit lighter in hue, and then some of them are going to be a little deeper. So there's that bottom row all set and ready to go with the 3 purples. And then for our top row, we're going to do this deep bluish purple. As the bottom layer. Smush that right in there. Beautiful. There we go. So right now it looks a little bit like just purple stripes, and that's okay. We're gonna melt one more batch of clear soap. And I'm gonna scent that one with my scent that I haven't used yet, which is frankincense. And I'm gonna put a little bit, I think, of this white shimmer powder in. So as you're microwaving, I will say the quantity of soap has a lot to do with how long you should microwave it, as well as your microwave. So play with it a little bit. I would recommend starting 10 seconds increments. just because you don't want it to get bubbly and frothy. You'll kind of get a rhythm going once you have done it a few times, and you'll be able to know a little bit more instinctively when the soap is ready, when you need to give it a little longer, when it's good, all that sort of thing. But to start out, definitely be cautious and go with the less is more philosophy. Same with your scents, same with your colors. You can always add more, but it's very, very difficult to take away. Oh, I love the smell of frankincense. It's divine. Okay, so I'm mixing in that shimmery white powder. And as you can see, I gave up on washing my what's it called, my measuring cup every single time, so it's got a little bit of the purple soap left over in it. And that's okay for this step, because this is the part where we're kind of incorporating these colors that we have here together. So very carefully, I'm going to put this back here, so if I spill, it's not a big deal. These guys very carefully over my layered soaps. I'm gonna pour or drizzle with the spoon, probably pour just to keep it simple, because it does like to glob onto the spoon. I'm gonna pour this light layer of clear and glittery right over it. When you're doing that first set of soaps, you don't have to fill the molds all the way to the top. You can, and that can be fine, but because we're kind of adding this extra layer to glue everything together, it actually works a little better if you leave just a couple centimeters towards the top that that aren't occupied by soapy stuff. So we're gonna let this go ahead and solidify now. And I did go ahead and just spread it all over the top, including over the silicone parts in the middle, just so that it gets nice and attached. So we're gonna let this set and dry, and because it's just a thin layer over the top, it should go a little quicker than the other one did. And soon we'll be able to pop them out. Essentially what we'll do is we'll pop them out, we will transfer them back to another empty tray, and that's the nice thing about having multiple trays too, is you can kind of do these in rotation. And this time we'll put the gluey side, the side that everything's stuck together on, down at the bottom so that we could glue the other side. With soap, of course, not with glue. So I've got my soap situated to where it's all stuck together. So we've got these soaps right now ready to be cut up and molded. And because you can find fancy crystal molds online, there are some that just kind of come in regular crystal geode shapes and whatnot, in various sizes and things like that. But I'm going to assume for this video that you don't have those. They can be hard to find or expensive to come by. So we're gonna DIY it. I'm gonna take out one of my lovely little bricks, and it's got a nice little gradient where it's kind of most clear at the top and it's got more of that color at the bottom. And I'm gonna try and cut it into a little bit of a crystal shape. I'm gonna start by trimming off some of the rough edges. And as usual, as I mentioned before, you want to be very, very careful when working with your knife so that you don't injure yourself. Any scraps, any little bits, If you like the look of them, you can use them in your crystal soap. If they look a little too softly edged or something like that, you can also use them in your final batch of melting soap, which we'll be using to stick everything all together. So for now, I'm just cutting all sorts of angles at the moment. To try and get kind of the effect of faceted crystal points. So I'm going to make a bunch of those. And you can do all sorts of different angles. And different triangle-y shapes. Just try to, as much as you can, use your creative instincts. And of course, as I mentioned before, use your caution so that we're safely creating these brilliant crystals. And this is, I would say, the most time-consuming part, aside from waiting for the soap to set between batches. However, I think this is also the part that's the most fun. So really take your time as you create these shapes. Let yourself explore different geometric angles and different ways to make it look faceted, stuff like that, and it can be pretty fun. Okay, so there's one chunk chopped up and ready to go. As you can see, it looks like a little collection of crystals over here. And I'm just going to keep chopping these up into crystal shapes. And then I'm going to kind of start arranging them. I actually have a separate container here, this little Tupperware container. It is microwave safe. And I'm going to use this to create the final crystal soap. So essentially what we're going to do is once we have all of our crystal pieces, we'll arrange them in here how we want them. And actually before we do that, we're going to melt a little bit more of our scraps and whatnot and put a very, very thin layer on the bottom. And then we're going to arrange our crystals how we want them and do another very, very thin layer of the melted soap, just enough to get it to where it's all sticking in there really good. So I will continue chopping. I'm going to get these all crystalled up, and when we are finished, I will show you guys the assembly. We'll probably do like a fast forward of that because I get real persnickety and I want to make it super fancy. But we'll do a time lapse of the assembly of the crystal soap, and then at the end, of course, I'll show you a picture of the final project. as you can see, this texture, this color is a little bit more opaque. It's milkier, and that's because I added some of the shea butter soap as well. So that white shea butter soap is giving it this kind of pastel hue. I'm going to pour a teeny bit in the bottom. Start situating my crystals. So after all of that melting and pouring and remelting and repouring and chopping up and so on and so forth, we have a lovely crystal soap. So I'll take a picture of the final product when it has set and is ready to be taken out of this mold. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful day.